want to take this video to show you another one of the plants on my property that's a real permaculture type plant. It's a plant that you can design around. It is this flowering plant that you see right here in the background, Wisteria. Now I have two different types of Wisteria on my property, Japanese Wisteria and Chinese Wisteria. That's Wisteria sinensis and Wisteria multiflora. They're two different varieties and they flower at two different times. I believe this is the Japanese variety right here. It has absolutely beautiful flowers that hang down this time of year. To give you some scale, this is how big they are. They smell absolutely beautiful. They fill the air with perfume. They're probably not as good as smelling as jasmine or lilac or say citrus blossoms for my taste, but nonetheless they smell pretty good. It's an amazing plant. It's in the Fabaceae, so it's a nitrogen fixer. They're vining and they tend to grow forever. They'll grow from here to New York and they get really big and fat. So one thing a lot of permaculture people do, or smart designers would do, regardless of whether they know about permaculture or not, is use the vining ability of this plant to cover areas. So this area, which I'll show you in a minute here, is an area where we have some seats under, and it's a shade structure. And what's going to provide the shade is this wisteria plant here, which I've trained up this post on either side, and then I ran some crisscross steel cable between them all and around the perimeter, and I'm training the wisteria vine to fill out this whole area. So come June or July, when it's blazing hot, the Southern California sun is directly overhead. Sitting out here in the past with no umbrella was unbearable in midday. It's really hot in direct sun. So this wisteria, which is currently now without leaves, will be fully leafed out at that time, providing a nice natural shade. So the cool ability of this plant, and one thing you can really play off of, is the fact that it does lose its leaves. It's deciduous. So with some smart passive solar type design, you can put the plant in an area where you want summer shade from the leaves, but where a lower winter sun could come in. And I'll show you an area that I have like that coming up around my kitchen window, because what I'm trying to do there is have the higher summer sun shaded by the flowers and by the leaves of the plant, but in the winter I want that lower sun to come in to bring warmth and light into the house, and that works well because in the winter these plants lose their leaves. I wish you could smell them because they are a beautiful smell. It's an absolutely beautiful flower, Wisteria. It's a great plant for designers. Can't tell you the exact range, but they for sure grow here in Southern California, and they for sure grow here to be big and long in Southern California. I think the biggest one down here is at the Huntington Library in Los Angeles, and it's something like 100 years old. So these are long-lived plants. Again, they're nitrogen fixers if that's something that you're looking for. So let me give you an idea of what this structure looks like above me, so you can see how I'm training this flower, this flowering vine, to solve some problems for me. So what you can see up here, these lines, these are steel cables, and they form an X in between four posts, and there's also a perimeter around all four posts. It's heavy duty steel cable because I know that these vines are going to get heavy when they're full of water and as they get thicker. The long-term idea is that when the vines eventually go over all these steel cables, the vines themselves will become their supporting structure as they tend to grow pretty thick. Like to see something this thick on a wisteria vine isn't that uncommon after they've been there for a while. So after a while, the structural support becomes the vine itself. So gradually, this has been in here for about 3 seasons now. They're working their way across this vine. I think after this flush of spring growth here, that they're gonna come all the way across and I can finally start training them around the rest of the circle. But so far, so good for it. It's been a fun experiment. And again, this is a way to use biology in design. It's just paying attention to what nature's doing and using it to your advantage. So this vine on these cables is gonna provide a nice ambiance, both in terms of visuals and scent when the flowers are going in the spring, and then come summer it's going to provide a lot of shade. This is one I actually got bare root, this flowering one here, from Home Depot 3 years ago, and it was probably about $10. So cheap, grows like a monster. It probably puts on 10 feet of growth at least per year and has no signs of slowing down. So this variety right here, this is the opposite of that. If that's Japanese, this is Chinese. And I believe this is white, while the Japanese one has the purple flowers on it. This one, as you can see, it hasn't bloomed out yet. The blooms are very tiny on there. It's gonna push later, so we're gonna get 2 different flushes of flowers coming into play here, which is really cool from a timing standpoint, so you get a long flowering period between the 2 different varieties. I'm gonna get the color play off of them, and they both seem to be pretty equal in terms of vigor and growth. The leaves aren't really different. The vines themselves don't look very different. So from that standpoint, there's really not much difference, but this variety is blooming later, and this variety will have a different color. This one I picked up at a nursery, and it was in a 5-gallon pot, and it was cheap, like $12. So here I just wanted to step back and show you the structure here. So this post and this post here run up. There's cables running this way, there's another one there, and then there's diagonals, as you can see here. The idea between running 2 this way was to block out that house that you see right there, because when these things are leafed out, you'll get a big shade barrier from the leaves right there, and that blocks that view. It also catches some of the shade, the sunlight, as it comes down. The eventual goal is all these little triangle spaces up here, 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 and here will eventually get filled in as the vine spider webs its way out. So at some point here in the future, there's going to be a whole roof of wisteria. Then that way, when you're sitting out here in June or July, the sun's overhead, you have the vines above you keeping you nice and cool. In the winter, when it's not as hot out, when it's cooler, it actually does get cool here in Southern California. There won't be leaves above you, so the sun that we do get will be allowed to come down. The con of this tree, or the con of this vine, if there is one, is it can be messy. You figure all those flower blossoms are gonna fall down, you're gonna have to sweep them up, blow them away. If you have furniture underneath, it's gonna get into the furniture. Also the leaves, they are deciduous, so those leaves are gonna come down, they're gonna go somewhere. The other thing are the stems from the flowers themselves. Those are gonna drop. So you're gonna have a lot of litter coming down. In a permaculture setting, that might be a great thing, but in some design situations, if it was around a pool or something like that, I get the challenges that come with that and the unwanted nature of that, because they are messy from that standpoint, but it's putting down a lot of biology, so that's good. So this right here is over my kitchen window, and the idea was to put a trellis here that could come up, straddle the kitchen window, come down on this end. The wisteria is planted over there, and it just comes up and fills in this whole trellis here. So it blocks out the high sun from going in that kitchen window. We get the benefit of the shade from it, so it keeps things a little cooler in the kitchen, keeps that blinding sun out. We also get to smell the flowers, which these are white. You can just see them starting to blossom. And we get the visuals of the leaves themselves. So it's solving multiple functions here. Aesthetic, shade, it's providing some scent. It's a really easy plant to design with, given the amount of functionality that it has. And again, this is without its leaves now, which is nice in the winter, so the light that we do want, it can come in. Now, my only complaint with this, if there is one, it's a little slow. As fast as this vine does grow out, this has been in here, I think, 2 or 3 seasons now, and it's not as filled out as I'd like to have it filled out at this point, but nonetheless, it's getting there, and I'm liking the direction that it's going. But once it's there, it's gonna be there forever, and regardless of whether this wooden frame's here 15 or 20 years from now, it's not gonna matter, because that vine's gonna be thick enough to hold its own weight, and you get this natural canopy that gives you a great play with the seasons, flowers in the spring, shade in the summer, and letting the light through in the winter. The wisteria, it fixes nitrogen. Check it out and see if it'll grow in your area. I absolutely love the plants. I love smelling them. Thanks for watching this one. Until next time, be nice, be thankful, and do the work.